from the Native American community, she came up to me and she said, "You see it, don't you?" And you know, back then, I'm talking, so you and I have been together 22 years. Golly. Probably 40 years ago. And I did see it then. And the great gift is I see it even more now. And she could see I had within me the capacity to see it. And I thought I saw it then. I see it so much more now. Don't we? We see the connection of all life. We're not separate from any other life. We cannot separate from this thing we call consciousness or life. And that's our topic today. So, life is consciousness. And that comes from this book called Heart-Centered Metaphysics. And I would like to read to you a statement by Emmett Fox. How many of you know Emmett Fox, his writings? Yeah, a lot of, again, people know Emmett Fox's books and writing, not understanding that he was a major unity teacher. Life is consciousness. We have the key to life. And that key is the knowledge that life is a state of consciousness. I'm going to read that again. We have the key to life. Touch your heart and say, I have the key to life.
I have the key to life.
And that key is the knowledge that life is a state of consciousness. The explanation of all your problems, the explanation of all of your triumphs, boil down to this. Life is a state of consciousness. That is the beginning and the end. That is the final step in metaphysics. All the other steps lead up to this one. So there's a whole book on metaphysics. We're going to start studying it at the end of this month in a 5-week class. But you've gotten the main point this morning in this writing from Emmett Fox. And we sum it up in that one statement: life is a state of consciousness. So we have the key to life, you and I. We know that our consciousness is what helps us maneuver our way through difficulties and the joys. It's the way we're seeing it, it's the way we're hearing it, it's the way we're perceiving it. That affects our entire experience. We know people who go through very difficult times and they have a smile on their face and a peace in their heart, and we say, how do they do that? Well, they come to unity. They ponder this idea that we are creating our experiences not by what has happened, not because there's been a tsunami or an economic crash. We create our experiences by the way we see and hear and perceive the experience. We can go through it triumphantly, or we can go through it getting knocked down. And then when we get knocked down, we say, wow, that was a great learning experience. I'm back up now, ready to go some more. Life is consciousness. So Stephen Levine wrote a really great book called Who Dies? Who Dies? Anybody know the answer?
Nobody.
Nobody. We've been studying. The answers to all the questions. Pete Seeger just left his body. Sky St. John just left his body. But did they die?
No.
No. So Stephen Levine wrote this fabulous book. For those of us who've done death and dying work, and everybody gets to do it sooner or later, we have a beloved one, we have a precious beloved who's passing, and then at some point it will be our turn. And we want conscious people around us, knowing who we are in that moment as we leave our bodies. Well, Stephen Levine tells a story in this book, one of my favorite stories of Stephen. He was called to the hospital room of someone that he didn't know. That happens with people in ministry and healing work. We're often called to be with a family for the passing or for the healing process of a beloved, and we don't really know that individual, but we're called to do the work there. And so he walked into this hospital room, and you've probably had this experience. Somebody's in the hospital, and they haven't seen people for years, but suddenly they have visitors. And the hospital room is full of the cousins and the scuzzins and the in-laws and the outlaws, and everybody gathers. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
And so this room was full of lots of activity, lots of conversation. And the man was lying in bed as people talking over him and around him, and he's lying there. You know, he's ready to leave his body, but everybody else is there to have a nice visit and a family reunion. And so Stephen Levine comes in, and he sits in the back, kind of where Neil's sitting right now. He sits in the back of the room, and the man is in the bed, all this activity going on, and suddenly the man goes, everybody gets very quiet because this man had not been moving a whole lot. Everybody gets quiet. And he points at Stephen Levine, and he says, I want to hear what he is saying. Now, Stephen Levine was sitting there very quietly, not saying anything in the normal way. But this man who was getting ready to leave his body, he could hear what Stephen Levine was doing. And what Stephen Levine was doing was a Buddhist prayer. And he was calling forth peace, peace, happiness, well-being. And this man could feel it. I want to hear what he's saying. And that is a part of what we're learning as we become more and more awake beings of light. People want to hear what we're saying. They want to draw close to hear what we are saying. And we're often not saying it with these words that come out of the mouth, but the words and the message and the energy that comes from our heart. I want to hear what he is saying. So in metaphysics, we talk about seeing and hearing from God's perspective, or we can call it the big picture. And from the book of Matthew, this is a repeat from last week, a review. Blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For truly, I tell you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see but did not see it, and to hear what you hear but did not hear it. Many of us have come from churches, religions, where we were taught things like we are going to die and go either to heaven or to hell. Anybody come from a church like that? Yeah. So we bless that part of our journey, and then many of us open our hearts and minds to the idea that heaven and hell are states of consciousness. How many of us have created hell in our minds? Most every hand goes up. How many of us are creating heaven in our consciousness? All hands go up. Many of us come from religious upbringing that teaches we are born sinners and that we need to be saved. That's where I came from, and I bless that arena. That was a huge time of teaching for me. I stand on that foundation. And my foundation gets even bigger and bigger as I open my heart and mind to the awareness. I am born as the light of the world. I am here to be the light of the world. And every part of my journey is sacred. I am the light of the world. I do not claim ever again that I'm a sinner.
Amen.
Now, do I make mistakes? Do I learn from my mistakes?
Eventually.
We're also taught in some of our religious upbringing, especially in the Christian upbringing, let's just note that right now, that Jesus is the one and only Son of God. Then we expand and open our hearts and minds, and we realize that we are all sons and daughters of the great, creative, magnificent, divine mind.
Amen.
And that Jesus was a forerunner, was an example giver, was a way shower. And if we are paying attention, the greatest teachers in the world say, you do this. You shine your light. You be the teachers, the healers, the visionaries. We want those teachers. We want those mentors. We want those friends. We want those people in our circles saying, you too can do all the things Jesus did and greater. So that's another place where unity and other spiritual communities, we open our hearts and our minds to the bigger picture, the metaphysical picture. Relative truth. This is when my husband David says, it is what it is. The relative truth. It's the appearances, it's the circumstances, it's constantly changing. It's our human experience. It's our history. We have history, some of it we can believe, some of us we've learned that what we learned in history class wasn't always the truth. Right? In metaphysics, we study absolute truth, the big God perspective, the eternal and enduring, beyond appearances, beyond circumstances. That's what metaphysics is. That's why some of us enjoy it so much. You know, it's interesting to note what's happening today in the world. It's interesting. But then we want to lift up into the higher perspective. Get the God perspective. So again, a review from last week, and I just love the slide so much I wanted to show it again. When life knocks you down, roll over and look at the stars. Don't you love that? That is basic metaphysics. When Cece was 2 years old, we took her outside one night in the big full moon, and she said, it was her first full sentence, look up. I didn't think she was 2. Look up. It's basic metaphysics. You may be standing in a puddle of mud. We have the choice to what?
Look up.
Look up. It's basic neuro-linguistic programming. We talked about that yesterday in Dan's workshop. Physiologically, neurologically, if we cast our glance up, we can pull out of depressed emotional states. It's metaphysics. Look up. I love that. So we redirect and we recalibrate. Life will redirect us. Have you noticed that? You're going in one direction very confident, and life redirects you. Now, in that moment, I can get really angry and really upset, and I can pitch a fit and have a conniption fit, really. Life redirects us. So what are we going to do? Are we going to stomp up and down and, cause a scene? Are we going to say, oh, the universe is redirecting me. I'll get a whole new grove and go this way. We recalibrate. We recalibrate energetically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. We're constantly, if we're paying attention, we have ears to hear and eyes to see and hearts to perceive. We're constantly recalibrating. Some of us call it realigning, recentering, constantly recalibrating. And I used to note years ago when I thought I had everything figured out. Have you ever felt that way? I used to think, oh, I was going to go into a new cycle about every 10, 12 years. I had an astrologer friend who showed me that, and I've noted, yeah, about every 10 or 12 years I get a new husband or no. I broke that pattern. But now I've noted that, it started happening more often, every 5 years, every 3 years, every 2 years, every 1 year, every month, every week, every day. And now we note, many of us, that there is a constant recalibration because this world is in a constant movement of energy, and we are in the greatest time of awakening, and it's not slowing down for any of us. So if we don't learn to recalibrate, we're going to have trouble in those moments of redirection. We're going to have trouble with those redirecting moments. The other day I did something that I have gotten angry with other people for doing. Have you noticed that when you judge something that you get to experience it? So one of the things that drives me over the edge is when people pull out in front of me. I'm going 50 or 60 and they're going like 20. And they pull right out in front of me. And so I have to do lots of deep breathing in those moments. Well, the other day, I pulled out from the Bilo parking lot, and somebody was coming up 17 really fast, and I looked ahead, I saw there was a red light, traffic was stopping, so I wasn't in a big hurry. He laid on his horn. It might be one of you. I don't know. No, we don't want to be you when you hear what's coming up. He laid on his horn. I thought, oh my God, I'm doing it. I did it. I can't believe I did that. I was one of the ones that pulled out, went real slow. Holly's Island is famous for it because we have a lot of people who do that. And, he made a gesture with his hand.
It was a blessing.
So I made one back. And that made him even more furious. He did it again. And he made that funny gesture with his hand, and I went. And as he went by, I'm going like this. He's redirecting. Life will redirect us. And so I paused and I said, there was a time when I would have matched his gesture. Not anymore. I'm saved. So Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, called this consciousness, this God perspective, this seeing and hearing and perceiving, he called this consciousness the absolute truth, the realm of divine ideas. The realm of divine ideas. And the world of psychology and spirituality, calls this consciousness the superconsciousness. Our friend Carl Jung, superconsciousness, divine mind. It's just enough to know that there is a part of us that has constant access to divine awareness and divine ideas. There are many systems and ways of looking at this. But it's not something that we have to go out and get saved for. It's not something that we have to join a particular church for. It's not something that we have to get certified in or get a master's degree in. It's already within us. We're wired for it. It's in our DNA. We are scheduled to wake up. And this consciousness is already within us. Anybody here who doesn't want to know that? I know it's a hard question.
Not, but yeah, it's true.
So, I would never profess to know all of the different ways that this system is explained in the world, but just simply, we're going to be looking into it in heart-centered metaphysics, very deeply. But just for a little glimpse, and you know this, there's people sitting here who know this far better than I. The super consciousness is the divine mind. It's the mind, we call it the mind of Christ, or the I am consciousness. We call it the universal one presence, the oneness. Many of us go to oneness blessing after service or on Wednesday nights. We open to this idea of oneness with all life. And this is the place that we access. That place of the I am, the Christ mind. And then we have our conscious mind. Well, some of us do. We have our conscious mind. This is the place where we are aware of our thoughts. We know when we're at a choice point. We know when we're at a choice point to do this or something else. We know when we're at a choice point where we're being redirected by life, and we know this is a moment I can flip out and have a conniption fit, or I can breathe and access my peace and awareness that all is well. The conscious mind, this is a place of our current perceptions, our current beliefs. How many of you have the very same beliefs? Nothing has changed from 40, 50, 30, 20 years ago. Good, no hands went up. We're constantly opening to new ways of seeing. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore said, this is the way I see it now, this is the way it appears now, but I reserve the right to change my mind as I receive new spiritual insights and as we receive new scientific discoveries. Mm-hmm. So, conscious mind changes. Superconscious mind is eternal, always the one presence, the one power, God, love. Then we have our interesting subconscious terrain. Think about this. You and I have, within our subconsciousness, all of the past thinking of humankind. Wow. It's like we're sitting on top of the river, and the river is full of all the things, all the history that humankind has been living and thinking for a long time. This is where our memories, our dreams come from. This is where we have memories. We can hold memories from when we're 2 or 3 that still affect us now. The fellow that gave me that lovely gesture, he appeared to be about 2 years old. He was driving a car. We do that. Have you ever had this experience? When something happens and something comes flying out of your mouth, and then you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah. Not me.
Or you react. You do something and you later say, I haven't done that in years. Where did that come from? Subconscious. That's what David Hiller works with. He's constantly working with people to go into the subconscious and create a new program to have a more healthy belief driving our lives rather than having some of those old beliefs, I'm a sinner, I'm going to hell kind of beliefs. You see what we're talking about? So subconscious mind is, it doesn't have the ability to discern truth and error. We talked about that yesterday in Dan's workshop. And it reproduces on the canvas of our conscious mind. So let me see if I can think of an example. With an old belief in my subconscious mind that I'm a sinner, there was a time in my life when I wouldn't speak everything I was hearing to speak because I thought I would be judged and cast out of my community. Mm-hmm. Because I was being driven by an old belief, a subconscious belief, that I cannot say what my spiritual guidance is because then I'll be a sinner. I'll go against what this community's teaching and I'll be excommunicated. An old belief that I'm a sinner and I'll be cast out of my community or into hell if I speak what Spirit's guided me to speak. I redid that belief. That we're all guided, we're all infilled with and guided by these divine ideas. And we are invited by Spirit to speak these ideas, to sing these ideas, to express these ideas. We better. Remember in the book of Thomas, if we don't bring forth that which is within us, it will kill us. But if we bring forth that which is within us, it will enliven and save it and save us. It will enliven us and save us. We have to bring forth what Spirit is guiding us to speak. But if we're guided by an old belief that we're less than, anybody ever dance around with that one? I'm less than, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. That comes from subconscious. So here's the fun news. Where is that cute little red dot now that I've... Oh. Not that one. So what happens is, in our conscious mind, we make a decision to access superconscious mind. And how do we access superconscious mind? How do we access the realm of divine ideas? Meditate. Prayer. Contemplation. Silence. Stillness. Tapping. We tap into our realm of divine ideas, our realm of divine mind, and then that energy seeps into, I'm using words that describe something it's hard to describe with words, but that divine mind realm seeps into our conscious and our subconscious. So the more we access superconscious mind, thank you, Javi, for saving me. Okay. The more we access superconscious mind through stillness, through silence, through prayer, meditation, contemplation, chanting, thank you, our Buddhist friends, we have this realm of divine ideas move into the subconscious. And then that shows up in our consciousness. It shows up in our words. It shows up in our perception. It shows up in our actions. We are transforming because the superconscious mind informs and transforms the subconscious mind. Now, this gets tedious, I know. And we're going to be looking at it more in Heart-Centered Metaphysics class. But it's enough to remember that when we access superconscious, and we make that decision in the conscious mind, we make that decision, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I'm going to sit in silence. I'm going to chant. I'm going to do my universal dances of peace. I'm going to open my heart, my mind to this realm of divine ideas. And then that superconsciousness infuses the subconscious. It informs and transforms the subconscious so that that old belief I had about not being worthy and good enough, it gets transformed to, I am the light of the world. I am the presence of peace. I am doing all the things Jesus did and greater. So Ken Carey. How many of you read The Third Millennium? I listen to it often. Still have it on cassettes. I listen to it when I'm doing my art projects and when I'm meditating sometimes. So here's what Ken Carey says. Close your eyes and listen to this, and I'll leave it up on the screen for you to read later. In the perspective of a seasoned traveler of the stars, a race that lives with daily access to a universe's library of information without ever making use of it is more primitive than a race who is yet to discover fire. Now open your eyes and we'll look at it again. In the perspective of a seasoned traveler of the stars, a race that lives with daily access to a universe's library of information without ever making use of it is more primitive than a race who is yet to discover fire. If you need a reason to meditate or go into the silence, this would be something to consider. How do we access the library of universal information? How do we access it? How do we listen to it? How do we see it? How do we perceive it? And if we're not giving ourselves over enough to silence, meditation, yoga, if we're not giving ourselves over to that enough, then we're not accessing that library of universal information as much as we could be. Right, Penny? Right. Meditation, yoga, prayer, coming together in drum circles, the dancing circles, the peace dances. We open to this library of universal information. Then he goes on to say this, so simple a thing, the discovery of fire, yet so immense, so revolutionary, the changes it brings. So simple a thing, the discovery of God.
Amen.
And we're not talking about the anthropomorphic, did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
God. We're not talking about, of course, God's white, and he's sitting up in the sky, and he's touching his finger to our finger, right? We're not talking about that image of God. We're talking about the divine presence of love and oneness, the universal one power, one presence. We're talking about an energy. We're talking about a field of consciousness, a realm of divine ideas. So simple a thing, the discovery of the realm of divine ideas. So simple a thing, the discovery of divine mind that lives within each one of us. So simple a thing. The discovery that you and I have access to this universal library of information. So simple a thing, this discovery. We can read libraries of books. We can read about it, but we have to do it. Golly, y'all, I've gone over. What a shock. So, Chris Beige, we know him. He's been here many times. He says that we are becoming a different species. We are becoming awake beings. And we do this by opening to a deeper communion with this realm of divine ideas, with the universe. So I'll end here. Not a bad place to end. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore opened their classes with this statement. Jesus Christ is here now, raising me to his level of consciousness. I am open and receptive to his teachings and guidance. All of us will have our teachers and mentors and our holy people who guide us into remembering. And some of us, we note that we have our holy people and teachers and mentors right here in this room. So we open to the consciousness that we want to be. And if Jesus is that example for you, then that can be a way for you to open your consciousness to that level of seeing and perceiving the world. If it's Buddha, if it's who else? Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. We open our consciousness to those who we see that their consciousness is a part of this realm of divine ideas. So imagine this. Just close your eyes right now. And whether you've made up with Jesus or not, remember, it wasn't Jesus that caused the trouble, it was the churches. Jesus never did anything but be love and peace in the world. It was the churches who messed that up. So, listen to this. Jesus Christ is here now, raising us to his level of consciousness. And we are open and receptive to his teachings and guidance. That's the realm of divine ideas. And then Jesus really got tricky when he said, and you can do all of this in a greater way than I do. Jesus says, you can do all the things I did and greater. So opening to the realm of divine ideas, opening to see that life is consciousness, includes making friends with those divine beings in the world. Some of them are sitting right here that you want to open to the kind of consciousness that they've opened to. Right? And we raise one another to this level of consciousness, and that's what we're doing here at Unity, and so it is, and so we let it be.
Amen.
And the end, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay, let's take another deep breath. Remember that today is potluck. You're all invited after service to come downstairs and have a bite to eat with us. And we're going to now do our sacred and holy process of receiving offering. And this church community so appreciates the way that people step up and volunteer, and they work with the children, and they build walls and do drywall, and they fix toilets, and they change light bulbs, and they write their checks, because this community is creating together what we're doing here, and everybody's needed, and all help is appreciated. So let's take a deep breath and do our offering blessing. I am light, flowing through thee, blessing these gifts to radiate peace. Here we go.
All the cities, all the nations.
the time because we want to call forth the wisdom of how to use this green energy in the highest and best way. I am life flowing through ye, blessing these gifts to radiate peace. So y'all just hold on real quick. Okay, we've got, again, Reiki happening in the Peace Chapel Tuesday night and Unity Healing and Prayer Service happening Wednesday night. And along first contemplative service Wednesday night, then healing service. Course in Miracles on Thursday. And the Unity Bookstore, 20% off of smudge sticks. So you can get your smudge stick today along with salt lamps, candles, jewelry, cards. And Unity Board meeting happens this Thursday night, February 6th, 5 p.m. potluck. All are welcome. And remember, Friday night's our reception. What are you going to do over here if you want to be at the reception? What do you want to do if you want to be in the prosperity class? Okay, 2 different sign-up sheets. Don't get confused. Next Sunday, self-knowledge out of the Metaphysics book. I'll be speaking. An angel party is happening here on Monday, February 17th with Susan Bowles. You'll hear more about that. And finally, potluck is happening downstairs. All are welcome. And oneness blessing right after service in the Peace Chapel. This is a boring place. There's not much going on, but we invite you to be here for what you can. Okay, y'all, that's it. Now we're going to do our prayer for protection for us and all those we're holding in our hearts together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And now our peace song. Here we go. Remember, yes, there is peace on it. Okay. No, are we saying? We're singing. What?
Oh, yes, there is.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, cross that.
Are we going to sing it? Okay, here we go. Okay, we're just having